Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We kick off the podcast for career options for mechanical engineers with the story of someone who started his career in design, switched to supply chain management, and is now working with one of the most valuable companies in the world, Amazon. It is my pleasure to welcome as my first guest my longtime friend and my batchmate from college, Mr. Naveen Toshniwal. Naveen has been very strategic and proactive about his career. He was the gold medalist in our branch, and he consistently outperformed the rest of us in academics throughout college. I remember him as hardworking, bright, and as someone who always went the extra mile. I remember a few years ago we were collaborating on a side project, and I recall telling him on a phone call that I would be working on my part over the weekend. It was Thursday night, and he instantly asked, "Why not tomorrow?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have no reason to not do it tomorrow." I believe that attitude is what separates the best from the rest. Listen to his story as we dive into supply chain management as a career. What skills do you need? His take on the need for an MBA, and his advice for freshers facing this tough market. A little disclaimer: this is his story, and neither of us claims that it will turn out exactly like this if you followed in his footsteps. Use your own judgment. Welcome to the show, Naveen.
Thanks, Abhishek. First of all, I must congratulate you for starting this wonderful initiative and inviting me on this show.
My pleasure, Naveen. So, you have been in supply chain management for over a decade now. Could you take us through the journey in your career so far?
Yeah, Abhishek. So you rightly pointed out it's been around a decade, and this is not something that I chose. I wanted to get into supply chain, but it's been really, really exciting journey up till now. So I'll tell you, as we pass out from the college, and when you pass out from, and when you're not passing, rather, when you're not passing from uh, IIT or an NIT, you are left with very few choices. Uh, uh, and I'll tell you, and when we passed out, the opportunities were far fewer as compared to what we have as of now. Um, so I'll tell you, when we started out as a GET, and uh, the journey, and I mean, like any other engineering graduate would have, we had a lot of inhibitions, what kind of journey and what kind of life it would shape out to be. But I'll tell you, by God's grace, it's been really nice. We, because of our efforts, because of the opportunities that we got, we have been able to shape it out the way we would have actually thought of 10 years looking down.
Mhm.
So we started out in an engineering company, a purely design company, and I was working in a as a designer. But when I started working, I realized that whatever we have learned, or maybe I have learned in my college as a designer, uh, maybe I was not so good at being at the design. So I was quite perplexed whether I wanted to continue in this field or not. So I took an alternative way, and I thought that let's go ahead for higher studies, and I chose to do MBA. So after 1 year, I left my job, and I started. I opted for an MBA in operations, and uh, unfortunately for me, the year I passed out, it turned out to be a global recession year, and again I was struggling to get a job, and I ended up landing in a job in Haridwar as a plant manager. The best part of that job was I was looking out over the whole sole operation of the company. So it had people management looking out for the workers, it had supervisor role, it had negotiations role, it had license role. And I believe whatever I am, a part of it got shaped at that point in time. It contributed a lot to my character in dealing with people and building up into human being that I am today.
Mhm.
Uh, in that 1 year, I think I learned what I learned in another 10 years of my life. After that 1 year, as you know, most of the engineers would dream of is to work in a automobile OEM. And by the end of that year, I got a call from Mahindra and Mahindra, and that was like a dream call for me. And I'll tell you, I was in Dehradun, and they called me next day morning 9 o'clock. I rushed down from Dehradun to Delhi overnight, and I had to catch a bus chasing from Haridwar to Roorkee on a bike. And that is something I still remember, and I can never forget in my life. So, as I mean, as it would happen, I got selected in Mahindra and Mahindra, and the role was for supply chain management in component development. It was an extremely, I would say, technically oriented role. And over the course of time, as I worked for Mahindra and Mahindra, I realized that this is something that I want to work for because of various reasons. Uh, one is it had a technical orientation, it had a supply chain orientation, it had a negotiation orientation as well. So I realized that this is something where I want to work, and I decided that the rest of my life, I mostly would be working in this kind of a role. Something oriented towards the supply chain management. I worked for around 5 years in Mahindra and Mahindra, and after that, around 5 years in Indus Towers Limited, again in the supply chain domain. And now I'm at Amazon, again working in a supply chain domain.
One hell of a story, Naveen. So you
Yeah.
mentioned you were able to use some technical skills, for example, while you were at Mahindra or even in Indus Towers. So what kind of technical skills do you use in supply chain management?
So I'll tell you, the technical skills have evolved or maybe has changed from company to company. In Mahindra and Mahindra, it was completely technical oriented, wherein I had to read through the drawings. So I'll tell you, I was working uh, for the forging commodity and a bit in the casting commodity as well. So we would get the drawings from the designer, and as a component development engineer, we would have to get the product developed right from the scratch. So we would have to, one of the technical competency that you should have is that you should be able to read the drawing. And where my first job helped me in the sense is that I could read the drawing. I could understand what was in the drawing, what kind of tolerances were achievable or not achievable. Uh, from the manufacturing perspective as well. Then you because it was Mahindra and it was going into a vehicle, so the entire part had a product life cycle development part. So it's not that we went ahead, made one product, and it was through. It would go through many iterations from that sense. So the first time that we would go and take the drawing and go to the supplier end, what we would do is uh, we would get to understand whether the supplier has dies to make that particular product. If not, then for the uh, pre-production basis, we would get kacha dies made. That is not a full production based dies because it would cost a huge amount of money. So we would get a kacha dies made and get the samples ready as soon as possible. Then the second technical skill that you should have is you should be able to measure the dimensions. You should be able to understand how to measure the dimension, and that too in microns. For if you are in gears, if you are measuring gears, so you should be able to do that. So the second technical skill that you should have is how to measure the quality. And the third thing is from the technical side is when the product goes, when you have made the product and it goes to the plant, there are chances that the quality guy would reject it. So you should be technically sound enough to to interact with the quality guy and convince your point of view. Because it's not there are certain gray areas as well in measuring quality. It's not everything which is objective. So there are certain subjective parameters as well. So you should be able to convince quality guy through your knowledge that this is, yes, can be acceptable, and this is something which cannot be acceptable. Yeah. Now, so this was something which I learned in Mahindra. And since Mahindra was a Deming company, we learned a huge amount of things, a lot of things in processes, Deming processes in the quality processes, like PPAP, production part approval process, uh, like like the detailed inspection check sheet as well, and various other things. Now, when you're moving from one company to other company, I certainly believe that you should be able to deploy your learnings from one company to other company, and this is what I, you know, learned and deployed as well. So when I moved to Indus, it was a company which was around 7-8 years old, unlike Mahindra, which is like 50-60 years old. So here the company was evolving, but had the aspiration to become to be extremely sensitive about quality. So here I was fortunate that my leaders also were from Mahindra, and they also understood that they want to deploy the Deming ways of working in this company. So I was fortunate, like I said, we had a team which had these kind of aspirations, and I brought in experience from Mahindra to deploy my quality learnings into this company and in Indus. So, but from the technical perspective, if I come maybe in Indus, the product was completely different. So earlier it was gears. Here I was dealing in towers, that is the mobile towers. So earlier, if you say the dimensions were measured in microns, here the dimensions were measured in mm. But the challenges here in towers were completely different as compared to um, the gears, because here if the product fails, it is extremely hazardous or risky to the people living by. So we had to be extremely sure that the product we are getting made from the suppliers is meeting our quality standards. So being in SCM, one thing is very important is that you visit your suppliers, you look at you look at the products, you feel the products, you measure the quality of the products at the plant, at the process stage, and then only you should give go ahead. And it is irrespective whether you are making a pin or a tower. So in Japanese way, they call it as a gemba. So wherein you do shop floor visits. So when you are visiting the shop floor, you are understanding, you are discussing on each and every quality parameter. So I think being in SCM, you have to be technically sound, and that is something uh, which any engineer passing out should actually be focusing on when he or she passes out from the college. Yeah.
Okay, Naveen. So you mentioned reading drawings is one skill, and then you mentioned measuring quality and being technically sound to be able to convince the customers. So, are there any certifications which could help somebody? What kind of certifications, like Six Sigma or something else?
Yes. So there are certificates in these various kind of certificates which are available, which any person or any college pass out can go to. One is, like you mentioned, Six Sigma. Black belt trainings are also there. So when you get into a company, you start working on some projects as well. And when you are doing these kind of trainings, so I'll tell you, these trainings would actually be more helpful when you are working on some projects in your company. Okay, so that when you are learning things, you can actually deploy those learnings into your real life projects, right? So there are trainings like Six Sigma, Black Belt training. Then there is project management also. There is PPAP trainings also available. Uh, and in terms of quality, I think PPAP and APQP is something which any SCM person should also be well versed with. So these are the trainings I would actually recommend.
Great. And you mentioned a lot of public dealing as well, right? Dealing with the customers,
Yes.
dealing with the people in the plant. So, did you pay attention to developing any soft skills as well?
Yes. So I'll tell you, I'll again go back to my earlier days. So I'll tell you, like I told you, I was fortunate enough to work for 1 year at a company in Haridwar where I was dealing with a lot of people. I was licensing as well, I was negotiating as well. So that taught me a lot of things. Okay. So, but when I moved to Mahindra, the negotiation part was not there. Though there was external interaction part with the suppliers and with the internal teams, but the negotiation part was not there. So I missed that negotiation part being in Mahindra, but that is something which was uh, not part of the job role over there. But when I moved from Mahindra to Indus Towers, the negotiation was under my role purview, and that is what made my I think I started loving my job when being at Indus Towers, because I was interacting day in and day out with a variety of suppliers. Each had a different mindset, different ways of looking at things, and and dealing with people. So the thing that happens over the course of time with any person is that you get bored of, maybe you get after doing same kind of thing, you get bored of the routine job. uh, but when you are negotiating with people, when you are interacting with people, that thing doesn't set in, because uh, every person is different, and that is something what I loved at my role in Mahindra. Oh, sorry, at Industar. Now, how can you learn about learn these soft skills? Uh, One thing that I would recommend is uh, if is this is something that you can learn on the job from your peers and uh, from your seniors. So I'll tell you, for 6 months when I moved to Indus Towers, I did not negotiate any contract. I just used to sit and observe people, my seniors, how they are interacting with each other. Okay, and I was just listening and observing these guys. Uh, at times you have to play, when you are negotiating, at times you have to play like good cop, bad cop kind of a role. At times you have to be extremely strict. At times you have to, mellow down, and because of the given situation, you have to accept to the supplier requirements. At times you have to deep dive and understand whether the supplier, whatever supplier is asking, is genuine or not genuine. So there are various strategies that you can deploy depending on the situation, depending on the product category, depending on the supplier, and various other situations in hand. So the best route is to observe and learn. Second is, there are definitely soft skill trainings development which are available in market, which you can go through and which you can attend. There is no harm in attending these kind of trainings. It definitely improves. Um, the third thing is, you must read a lot of things. If you are getting into negotiation, you must read a lot and you must interact a lot. That is something which would help you more than anything else. Yes.
Yeah, so great points there about soft skill training. So now you have worked in different industries. So a fresher, how should, as a fresher or even as an experienced professional, how should you target which industry to go to? Do you look at the growth of that industry over the next years? Do you look at who are the competitors? What kind of strategies do you use to decide on the industry you are going to enter?
So, Abhishek, like I told you, being in India, if you're passing from a college in India, there are various A, B, C, D, or whatever categories are there. If you're passing out from an A plus list, you may have that choice to select an industry where you want to get in. And I would not recommend, I would not give one solution to that, and I would not recommend any industry for that matter for anyone to get into, because it all depends on the choices of an individual. So if an individual being a mechanical engineer want to get into um, an automobile industry, then he should target. I mean, if he's not even getting into an automobile OEM, he should at least even target that he should get into an automobile ancillary. And over a period of time, he can, work towards it and get into an OEM over a period of time. And from my experience, I will tell you, most of the success stories that comes from the automobile OEM is people who have graduated from automobile ancillaries, because they have the ground knowledge of things happening in the shop floor. So that is one thing for sure. The second thing is uh, no industry for that sense is good or bad. So if you see telecom industry up till few years back, it was at an nascent stage. There were a lot of thriving companies which were evolving. From 12 companies, 12 to 14 companies back in 2015, it is now left with only three companies. So if you, I mean, 10 years back, if somebody would have taken a job in, telecom sector, would have, there are high chances that he would be jobless by now. So one should not, actually focus on industry. One should rather focus on building his skill sets uh, in whatever industry he is. So this is what I learned when when I was in automobile sector, when I was in Mahindra and Mahindra. So I'll tell you, when I was in Mahindra in 2000, from 2011 to 2015, there were studies which came that tractor industry would be completely wiped out from India by 2022. And looking at the growth rate that we have now in 2020, it has surpassed any year before this. So, you certainly cannot predict an industry for that sense. But what I learned from Mahindra is various set of skills, like I told you, in the technical domain, in the supplier interaction, soft skills domain, and all these kind of things. So you should, wherever you are, you should actually focus on developing your skills, and those skills can help you get a job either in the same. I mean, you can excel with those skill sets within the same industry or in a different industry for that matter.
Sounds like great advice, Naveen. Focus on the skills, not on the industry. Does the MBA count now, Naveen? I mean, when or why should one consider an MBA in SCM? Is it an added advantage after a certain number of years of experience, or should one go for it straight out of college? I mean, after the engineering degree, or is it not relevant? Let's say in the long run. What's your take on that?
So I'll tell you, it has not worked for me. I can definitely tell you, maybe because of the year that I passed out, so it has not worked for me. Uh, but it's, again, I will say, it's not. If it has not worked for me, it will not work for anyone else. Is not the situation. So you know, I've seen people who were in technical domain, but they did some, so when you are already working, it becomes difficult to leave the job and go ahead for the MBA. Though you can do that in the initial years of life, but later on, if you think of leaving the job and uh, moving for an MBA, it becomes a bit of difficult situation, and it may not be possible for every candidate. Or so. Uh, so it may be relevant for some, and it may just not be relevant for some. But I would definitely recommend that if somebody wants to do MBA, first thing is that he should be doing it from. I mean, after a work ex, he should be doing it from a really really good institute, because you are doing it for addition of your skill set. Second thing, you are doing it from the addition of your networking. Third is that you are now moving from a technical role to a generalistic role. more of a generalistic role, wherein you want to get some added competencies so that you can, you want to grow in your career over a period of time, and you want to move more from an extremely day in day out technical role to maybe a generalistic role at the CEO level or CXO level, any CXO level, then I think MBA might help in some cases. But if you are very much clear that that you don't possess the skill set of being into, or you don't want to get into generalistic role, then I would suggest please avoid that. Rather focus on developing your technical skill or maybe whatever skill that you want to hone instead of just following the crowd. Yes.
Makes sense, Naveen. Any last piece of advice for freshers who are facing this tough market scenario and let's say are not necessarily from a tier 1 college but have dreams of landing a job at Amazon? What advice do you have for them?
Sure, Abhishek. I have a very crisp advice, and this is something that I follow 4P principle in my life, which is very briefly, if I put it this way, first P is positive outlook. One should have a positive outlook to anything and everything that he does in life. The second P is passion. One must be passionate about the job or whatever work he does. The third P that I call is the perseverance. One should be persistent in his or her efforts and should not let the thing go. And the fourth P, which is the most important, is the patience. So one should not expect results in a short span of time. Rather should think of playing a long inning and wait for fruits to bear.
I like this 4P advice, Naveen. What's the best place to find you on social media?
Abhishek, I am reachable on LinkedIn. Anybody can ping me on LinkedIn, and I would be happy to get back to him or her at any point in time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Abhishek.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Naveen.
Okay, bye.